what are some of the first signals that we know trust is or repair is even possible?
It's things like body language and eye movement and nodding of your head when we're in agreement and all those subtle cues. Picking back up on those that the other person gives off signals that, yes, that's sometimes and this is going to sound strange, but sometimes just going up to somebody and saying, I need a hug, or I'm going to give you a hug. Hug actually releases oxytocin. And when we get to oxytocin, we're much more likely to have empathy and all those other things that are going on. Lots and lots of chemicals around. And so those are the sort of clues that you can get. Right. Again, if you have the courage, and not everyone would have the courage to do, but actually suggesting the conversation that says, hey, look like things went awry for us. Are you willing to re-engage and talk about what went wrong and what we can do in the future?
And I think in marriage or in spousal or committed relationships, that context, it can, depending on what's happened to break trust and that there's a desire to rebuild it, there may be some intentionality that has to happen too, right? Asking the question, are we able to begin this process? And of course, I always recommend marital counseling in that instance, or relational counseling, because they can help guide you. But I think once you've established that you are willing to rebuild trust, then, and this is a high level summary, and then we'll talk about some of these points as we move along the next several set of discussion items. But I do want to frame up 8 key, I don't know if I'd call them factors or characteristics or components of rebuilding trust, which is understanding the impact of the lie or what actually broke the trust. What does that impact actually mean? Then 2, what is the importance of accountability in rebuilding trust, which we're going to talk about here in a moment. Opening up to transparent communication, because that becomes really important. We talked about that from a vulnerability perspective in the trust equation. Building reassurance through actions, not just words, reliability in the trust equation. Giving time and space for healing, which I think is an interesting one, because a lot of times what I hear from people is we were on the rebuilding of trust process, but then they got upset about what the same similar event or the same event in the future. Not that something else had happened, but it's just that there was something that was triggered them to get upset again. And so how do we give space and time for people to heal versus forcing them to heal as fast as possible? Because that actually has the opposite impact or opposite effect of what we're trying to accomplish. Working together towards growth, reconnecting emotionally and rebuilding intimacy, and then finally choosing to forgive when you're ready.